Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Wizards of the Grimoire from Grimoire Games and designed by Cole Banning and Joe Banning. And I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, what this game is this is a two-player card battler a la Magic the Gathering, just simplified. And I would be remiss if I did not call out So Very Wrong About Games for their delightful, playful ribbing that they give the game, which has a rather generic name. They call it Pew Pew Bookie Book, and I cannot help but think of it as Pew Pew Bookie Book. And we will see when we get to my final thoughts if I think that this game is more than just what sounds like a generic card battler. Now let's talk briefly about how this game is going to be played. What we have here is all of the spells that you can currently draft into the game. And I've just started kind of with 3 spells down here, though you start the game with 2 on your first turn that you actually get to take an action. And anytime a spell is taken or it is drafted, then it will be immediately replaced by a new spell. And there is, I think, 70 different spells in the game. And in this game, what you're going to be doing is you are the 2 apprentices of the Great Wizard who has died, and you are battling it out to be the new Great Wizard. And you're going to battle out, and the first player to get to 0 life will lose, and the other player will be the winner. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played, so I want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played, and I also should say, turn your Clay on subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that is where you will find those corrections. Now, the game itself is relatively simple. What's going to happen is, on your turn, the first thing you're going to do is you get to draft a new spell. If you have less than 6 spells, you're pretty much always going to draft one. So I'll just grab this one right here and pull that out. And as I said, it immediately gets replaced. Now, that's going to happen every turn. So for the moment, I'm just going to slide all these cards out of the way a little bit so we can talk a little more about what I have. Then, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to do a spell cooldown, which means nothing right now because I haven't shown you any spells. Then you're going to draw 3 mana, and you'll see the mana, you have different numbers on them between 1 and 4. Then you're going to get to play as many spells as you want. And the spells, the cost is the number of cards that you see right here. So both of these spells cost 2 to play, while this one here costs 1 to play. And the mana you use, the number makes no difference. You just have to simply put 1 card, or in this case 2 cards, face down right above it, and then you can activate whatever it is that the spell says it's going to do. And all very simple. They all tell you exactly what's going to happen. After you've played all the spells that you're going to play, I'm just going to grab some more mana here, then you can do a basic attack. And then any mana that's in your hand, you can just zap the other player for whatever damage is on that particular card. And that's pretty much how the game works. Now, I mentioned that there's the mana cooldown step, again, and that is right after you draft a new spell. And what that simply means is you're going to take 1 card off of each spell that has mana above it. And if there's mana above it, you can't cast the spell again until it's all gone. That's kind of the recharge. And you're simply going to play through, casting your spells at each other until 1 player's been defeated. I'll also point out that if at some point you do have 6 spells and you want to replace one, you can do that as long as it doesn't have any mana above it. So I could replace this one or this one. I could not replace one of these until they have finished cooling down, like so. And that's how this game works. So what do I like about this game? First, the art is great. I mean, we're talking kind of generic fantasy world magic, but the art is really, really good. I really like the way it looks. Small box, that's great. It's got this little magnetized thing, which is always very, very cool. Nice packaging, love that. It's very simple to play. This game is a key, simple to play, hard to master kind of game because there's just not a lot of rules. The core of it comes from the spells that you have. And they've done a very clever thing with all these different spells. I think it's 70 different spells, and they all do something different. And some of them are drastically different from the others. And in theory, that would lead me to believe that the game is going to kind of get stuck on this idea of constantly having to try to figure out what the cards do. But because once you've got your 6 out there, you don't change them out very much because it's a little bit hard to change them out unless you're not using a spell. It means that you very quickly understand what your 6 spells do, and maybe you swap one out here and there, but you don't have this constant influx of tons of new information that you're trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that really does work very well. I also like just kind of the core mechanic. Again, I already said I think the spells, the variety is great, but the way you're utilizing the mana, they're just kind of sticking the cards out there to pay for it, but then hoping you have big power cards to really hit somebody with a basic attack. But at the same time, because of the variety of spells, sometimes you have spells where you want to put specific mana numbers down on the spell, which means you're not using it to hit them. It's just very, very clever. And as I said, the variety of spells makes every different game really different because it's always different things out there and you're going to build a different engine each time you go. And it's short. The game just is not long. And you can easily make it shorter or longer because you could just up or reduce the amount of hit points that you have. Very, very easy to do. All of that's great. Really cool. So what are my quibbles with the game? The first thing is I don't like the cards. Literally the cards. I find them very hard to just slide through. I find they stick oddly, and I don't know what it is. And frankly, it means I'm going to have to get some sleeves and sleeve these. Then, of course, that's going to bring the question, I don't know if it's going to fit in the box if they're sleeved. So I'm having a moment as far as that goes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. The next thing I'll say is, it does seem like there's a little bit of, if you really start falling behind or if you build your engine in a way that just didn't work, there is no catch-up. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing considering the brevity of the game itself, but I do know there are people out there that you're going to say, oh, well, if I fall behind, I'm just going to lose. That can happen. There was definitely one of the games that I played where I was like, oh, well, I am clearly not going to catch up because there's not any big damaging spells out there at the moment, and I built this mana generating engine, so I have all these cards coming in so I can cast all my spells, but all my spells are just going like plink, 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 and then they're hitting me back with Fire Blast. So there is something to consider there, that it is possible with the draw that, you know, you find yourself kind of painted into a corner. I don't know that it happens that often, but I always like to point out when, even if it's an outlier experience, that I point out that it is something that can happen, because if it happened to me, it's gonna, and 1,000 people buy the game, it's gonna happen to other people then. But really, that's it. I think this is a really clever and fun game. I really enjoyed it. This is one that I said yes, I was going to cover it, and I was immediately going to give it to my brother, because this is his style of game. Well, he can go buy his own, because I'm keeping this. And to me, it immediately jumps into that small category of best-in-class two-player games. And I've talked about two of them ad nauseum, right? I've talked about Dice Command, and I've talked about Skulk Hollow / Mull Peak, and I think that those will never leave my collection. They are brilliant two-player games. Well, this is one that just might be there too. It's possible if I keep playing, I'll get tired of it, but right now, I don't see it going anywhere. I think it is a top-notch two-player game if you're into that just aggressive, slugfest, beat each other up type game that is going to kind of give you vibes of Magic the Gathering, just way simpler to play and easier to learn that anybody can jump in. There you have, folks. That is Wizards of the Grimoire, or as they call it on So Very Wrong About Games, Pew Pew Bookie Book. This is one that I think you should absolutely check out if you're looking for a two-player game, or if you're the type of person that has a love of card battling games, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, whatever. Really, really a top-notch game. I'm very, very pleased with it. So, there you have it, folks. As always, if I've made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe join. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.